Chapter 4. The Way We Are. Their voices in the other room were barely louder than a whisper, but the urgency in the words and attitude was like an alarm, shaking Kara from her sleep. Kara rolled over in bed, trying to mind her own business, but in the silence, it was like Alex and their mom were yelling right in her ear. Contrary to what her mom thought, Kara could not simply just turn off her super hearing. She had to focus her senses on what interested her, and sometimes she could not help but hear things she didn't want to hear. "You need to be setting a good example for Kara," Eliza scolded. "You are her big sister and you need to act like it. You can't constantly be running to your room whenever you don't like what I have to say." Silence. Eliza continued. "Now, the school called yesterday and told me that both of you girls are struggling in your classes. This is Kara's first year, so it's understandable that she might need some extra help. But you have always had straight A's and B's. You spent so much time on your computer each day, I thought you were doing homework. But I guess using the computer was just your way of escaping. Now, what happened to your father has been hard on all of us, so it's completely understandable that you would be distracted and lack motivation." Kara could hear Alex crying when Eliza spoke of Jeremiah. Kara stole a peek through the wall into Alex's room and saw the shadow of a woman putting her arms around a frail-looking girl. Their mother had not spoken of their father in almost a month, as though ignoring his absence would make it hurt less. But now, just the mention brought Alex to tears, and seeing and hearing Alex crying made Kara cry too. "I know it's hard, Alex. I miss your father too. We don't feel like a normal family without him. Maybe we all need to see Dr. Binder again for a few sessions. In the meantime, I want you to try harder in class, and please spend more time helping Kara with her studies at home." "I will, Mom," Alex promised while wiping her tears. Kara felt bad for Alex. She felt like somehow she got Alex into trouble, even if she didn't quite know how. She also felt guilty for eavesdropping, that maybe she could have tried harder to not intrude on their privacy. But what she heard was not new. Their dad's death a year ago had fractured the family, and Kara had been broken for much longer. All three of them needed to learn again how to be a family. After waiting 5 minutes, Kara climbed out of bed. She put on a blouse similar to the one she had worn yesterday, which their mom had described as pretty. She put on her smallest skirt because some perv in the chat room said he liked it, but more because some bitchy girl said that she didn't. The stinky sweater aired out overnight, so the perfume smell was not so strong. Kara decided she'd let the smell fade day by day and see if anyone noticed. Alex and her mom were both sitting at the kitchen table eating eggs and toast when Kara sat down to join them. Alex flashed Kara a look she couldn't quite understand. It contained a lot of emotion, but then Alex kept on eating her food. Kara felt conflicted too. Her stomach demanded food, and lots of it, but the sad atmosphere in the room curbed her appetite. Also, Kara could not stop thinking about the other people calling her a pig. "Eat something," their mom finally insisted. Then she teased, "Or the boys won't have any curves to look at." Alex and Kara glanced at each other as if to groan. Kara put the toast in her mouth. It was delicious and disgusting at the same time, but she ate it in 4 quick bites. Then she felt ashamed. Alex looked up at Kara while she buttered her toast and whispered, "It's okay." Alex was in no mood to chat on the bus ride to school today, but she held Kara's hand the whole way there, even though her palms got sweaty, and she sat very close so that their thighs pressed against each other and their arms intertwined. Talking was not necessary. English Lit and American history sucked, Kara thought. Who cared about a book called 1984 when it was now 2006? Who cared about a Revolutionary War when the English have been our allies for generations now? Kara knew it was a bad attitude to have, and she hungered for knowledge, just not the kind of knowledge they were peddling in school. The best thing about being homeschooled is that Eliza and Jeremiah had taught her things that she felt like she needed to know. Kara was more eager to start her 3rd class of the day, biology, because Lena was in the same class. Lena greeted her with a hug and a smile, and insisted that she sit next to her and Eric. and Kara was so happy to oblige. She expected another boring lecture, but she would be happy regardless with her friend sitting with her. The teacher began the class by instructing the students to open their textbooks to Chapter 8, where Kara was greeted by compelling images of a penis on one page and a vagina on the other. Both images were diagrams shown in cross-section, with arrows pointing to parts of the body. There was nothing at all erotic about the drawings, but it didn't stop Kara's heart from accelerating. Sexual education was very limited on Krypton until adulthood, and the Danvers were very quiet about sexual matters, even though Eliza was a biologist. Eliza was strictly a parent when it came to sex, and her curious teenage daughters and Kara never dared to ask questions. All Kara knew about sex was through primetime television shows, giddy jokes Alex told her, crude remarks overheard in school, and brief moments of adventure Kara had while learning how to Google. The barrage of sexual content in American culture was quite an education in itself, so much so that now Kara felt like she knew everything she needed to know already. Teachers rehashing the ins and outs of sex in school seemed pointless, but that didn't stop her heart from racing. She shifted in her seat and leaned forward, giving her full attention. There was something disturbing and exciting about learning about sex in school. Lena smiled with amusement as she watched Kara, and she whispered, "Calm down, young one." Kara sat back and wondered if she was blushing. Her teacher was a middle-aged man dressed in a proper suit and tie, and he spoke about penises and vaginas like he might talk about components of a computer. To Kara's surprise, she actually knew very little about the biology of sex, beyond the most rudimentary facts. Despite a few curious visits to pornographic sites, where she got to see a variety of body parts and sexual positions in detail, there was so much that she hadn't noticed before, and so much more science behind it all than she had ever considered. Lena was apparently more amused by Kara than the class itself. She whispered jokes so quietly that Kara wondered if a normal girl would have heard them, and some of the jokes were so crude that Kara felt ready to explode in laughter. As the class was nearing an end, the teacher's tone changed when he described the evolution of behavior and some vague controversy. When the teacher mentioned something about homosexuality, Kara heard a few murmurs bubbling up in the classroom, so she listened more closely. "Homosexuality is a biological dead end, and therefore against fundamental principles of evolution," the teacher declared confidently, but with more vigor than he had talked about body parts and hormones. One student, who had been holding his tongue for a while, finally spoke up, saying, "But didn't scientists find some kind of gay gene or something?" "There is no gay gene," the professor replied, slowly and forcefully. "And if there were, it would surely be weeded out by natural selection in time. No, that mysterious gene is a desperate attempt to legitimize sexual behavior through pseudoscience. The truth is, homosexuality leads to de-evolution, not the improvement of the species." Lena was waving her hand vigorously, wanting to open the discussion up to a debate. The teacher held his hand out in a stop gesture, then said, "But of course, it is every person's right to have sex with whoever they want, regardless of how unnatural it may be." But Lena would not be discouraged or silenced. She stood, and when the teacher seemed intent on ignoring her, she addressed the whole class with an air of authority. "People have sex to reproduce like only 1% of the time. There are dozens of other social and biological benefits to having sex that have nothing to do with reproduction. Sure, if everyone was gay 100% of the time, yeah, we'd be in trouble, but we'd also be in trouble if straights banged each other all the time without condoms. The most important thing sex does is let people express love for each other. Love has survival value, and it's unnatural to stop people from loving each other simply because of who they choose to love." A few students clapped when Lena sat back down. The teacher looked hot around the collar, but he collected himself and said, "Looks like you've polished up your act since last year, Miss Thorold," reminding everyone that Lena was held back a grade. "But now, let's move on to biology, rather than make this a political forum." Kara gaped at Lena in awe, as the power of her words seemed stronger than all the abilities that Kara possessed. Lena smiled, taking the attention as a compliment. Soon after, when the class was ending, the teacher handed out sheets of paper, saying, "Read the rest of the chapter and fill out these questions for tomorrow. Now, enjoy your lunch." The room was suddenly full of conversation, and the assortment of teenagers stood from their seats at once. Kara looked down and shuffled her feet, unsure if Lena still wanted her around, now that class was over. "Aren't you coming?" Lena reassured, as she and Eric headed for the door. Kara hurried beside them, and they headed towards their lockers. Lena immediately leaped into conversation like they had been best friends all their lives, while Eric tagged silently along. "Can you believe that guy?" Lena asked, as if shocked. "Can you believe that guy? I don't know if he's a religious freak or a mad scientist who just doesn't give a shit about people. He's so narrow-minded. He shouldn't be allowed to teach anyone about sex or anything else." "Amen," said Eric, earning him a quick elbow from Lena in the chest. They both smiled at a private joke. "I like what you said about how people should be able to love who we want to love," said Kara awkwardly. "I thought people weren't allowed to do that." Eric looked at Kara like she had 3 eyes. Then he glanced at Lena, barking, "Damn, homeschooling." Lena rolled her eyes as if Eric was the odd one. She put an arm around Kara's shoulder, saying, "It's not a choice, and if it wasn't for our damned governor, you and I could get married when we graduate." Lena swooped Kara into a waltz, as though they were 2 brides on their wedding night. Kara stumbled over her 2 feet as she tried to keep up. In the midst of the dance, Kara asked Lena innocently, "Are you gay?" Lena smiled, unflustered and unoffended, and danced on, saying, "I hate labels. I love who I love. I'm just like you." Kara laughed at how absurd that sounded. "I wish I could tell you who I really am," she confessed. "Someday," Lena prophesied, "you will tell everyone proudly." Kara smiled at the thought. It seemed so impossible. Just then, Lena was pulled forcibly from Kara's embrace, and Kara wasn't sure which made her dizzier, the spinning or the sight before her eyes. One of the boys from the biology class had apparently followed the 3 friends to their lockers. Donnie Barksdale was tall and athletic and had a mean glare in his eyes. "I told you to stop spewing that shit in class." He spat in Lena's face as he pressed both of Lena's shoulders against the lockers. "Now you parade around with your baby dyke friend." Despite how strong Lena seemed most of the time, she shrank under the confrontation. This was not something she was strong at. Kara felt paralyzed too, not from the fear of the boy, but instead fear of being herself. It had been drilled into her to not bring attention to herself, so she watched as the bully slammed his hand against the locker behind Lena's head, making Lena cower and fear for her safety. The air felt so wrong. The air felt so furious. It was then that Eric pounced on the bully, not caring that the bully was twice Eric's size. Eric staggered from the punch to his face, sending him stumbling backward, but by then several outsiders pulled the 2 apart, while Kara still did nothing. Well, at least Kara found the courage to help her friend up, as Lena had fallen on her butt. Lena wiped a few tears from her eyes and somehow managed to smile at Kara. "I'm so sorry," Kara said, with frustration in her voice, feeling ashamed to have done nothing. "Oh, it's not your fault," she said reassuringly. "It's just me and my big mouth, just asking for trouble." Eric joined them while rubbing his soon-to-be swollen jaw. "Are you okay?" he asked Lena, with a mouth that wasn't quite working right. Lena touched his arm. "I'm fine. How are you?" "Feeling kinda stupid," he shrugged. Lena laughed, sadly. "That's my hero." Several teachers came and dragged Lena, Eric, and the bully away for questioning. Kara wished she could go with them. Didn't they need a witness? Actually, there were several witnesses. Kara wished she could go help her friends. Besides, meeting at the principal's office with her friends and answering tough questions seemed like heaven compared to eating alone. Without her friends around, Kara lacked the strength to keep her diet. She piled a triple portion of pasta on her plate and sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria, eating at almost superhuman speed. She didn't look up. She didn't want to see who was watching her. After she finished eating, she rested her head on the table, pretending to sleep as she waited for lunch to end, feeling totally alone and like a freak, as usual. With only a few minutes left, she heard footsteps approaching her table. She looked up, expecting to see Lena, but it was Alex, who sat down on a chair opposite to her. "I was just in the lab when someone told me what happened," Alex said, as she wrapped her fingers around Kara's hands. "I don't even know what happened," Kara said angrily. "People are so mean here. Lena didn't even do anything wrong." Alex looked away uncomfortably. "I'm sorry what I said about Lena yesterday. We had a fight last year, so I guess I was a little angry when you said you were friends. Really, it's okay," Alex said gently, then hurried to add, "but don't tell Mom." Kara nodded quickly, having no idea what she shouldn't tell their mom. "What about Eric?" Kara asked. "He still gives me the creeps," Alex said. Both girls laughed, even though Kara doubted that Alex was kidding. Alex's stomach growled loud enough for ordinary ears to hear, and Alex confessed flatly, "Yeah, I'm kind of hungry, but I can see you already ate." "Dessert," Kara suggested enthusiastically, and the girls rushed to the kitchen before lunch break ended. The girls were a bit disappointed that their favorite seats were taken on the bus trip home, so they had to sit way up front, right behind the driver. Not very private. They waited not so patiently for their seat to open up, but after the bus stopped a few times and nobody was getting off, Alex couldn't take the silence any longer. "So, do you have homework today?" Kara remembered Alex's conversation with her mom that morning, and she didn't want to bother her sister with her boring freshman homework. "It's nothing. Just a little easy math and some stupid biology." Alex's eyes lit up, since she wanted to be a bioengineer like their mom. "Oh, that should be fun. What did they give you to do?" Kara stalled, and Alex raised her hands as if to say, "Well?" Kara then sighed, reached into her book bag, and pulled out the 2 sheets of paper. Alex snatched them from Kara's hands and read a few lines and simply said, "Oh," as she looked it over and started to blush. Kara's homework presented a long list of sexual descriptions and demanded that Kara separate out the male from the female characteristics. That was pretty easy, Alex thought. Then it required that Kara further separate the primary from the secondary sexual characteristics. A little trickier, but no big deal. Alex glanced around to see if anyone else was looking. She knew there was nothing to be embarrassed about. The homework only used scientific terms: vagina instead of pussy, penis instead of cock, and so forth. No pictures. Still, Alex felt uncomfortable even thinking sexual thoughts in a public setting. She put the homework back into Kara's book bag. "We'll work on this when we get home," she said quietly. "Okay," Kara replied nervously, "because I'm not sure if I have all those things on the list." "Of course you don't," Alex laughed, then whispered, "I know you don't have a dick." Kara bumped Alex. "No, you know what I mean. The female things." Alex then realized that Kara was serious. She smiled and comforted. "Don't worry, we'll find your missing parts when we get home." Around the time the bus was turning onto their street, a chirping sound called from Alex's pocket. She pulled out a small flip phone that Eliza gave her when she upgraded to a BlackBerry. Every minute costs money, so she could only use the phone for emergencies. She opened the phone and read the 3-word message, "I'll be late." A big smile covered her face. When her mom texted that message, it always meant she would be very late. The girls barely waited for the bus doors to open before they jumped out and laid claim to the house for the next several hours. They plopped onto the sofa, which was big enough for 3 people, but Kara squeezed up against Alex like she was a pillow, pressing against her heart while they hunted down entertainment on TV. Jeopardy for 3 questions, Animal Planet for 5 awes, then a music video where the girls leaned forward, trying to decide if Britney Spears was naked. No, just wearing some sparkling, flesh-colored thing. Or was it sheer? The girls looked at each other when the video ended. "Where's that homework?" Alex said suddenly. Kara bounced off the sofa effortlessly and was back like the Flash in an instant, presenting the assignment to Alex. They went over the male list first. Kara had some trouble deciding between primary and secondary features, so Alex explained carefully, while she made playful jokes about how this or that characteristic turned her on. She wasn't very convincing. She wasn't trying very hard. An extra credit exercise asked them to list any characteristics that were missing from the list. This stumped them for a while until they remembered that their dad had a big Adam's apple. Then, for the female body parts, Alex teasingly asked Kara which part she thought was missing. When Kara hesitated, Alex pinched one of Kara's breasts playfully and said, "Because your boobs are small, but they are girl boobs. Mom is right. You just need to eat a little more, and you'll be a B-cup in no time." Kara shook her head. Her boobs weren't what worried her. She tried to pronounce the words as she read it from the page. Clitoral crura. Alex shook her head and said, "Oh, of course you—" Then she hesitated. Alex often forgot how unique a girl Kara really was. "Do you even know what a clitoris is? Do you know where it should be?" Kara nodded. "I saw a drawing. I don't have anything that looks like the drawing." "Well, it's pretty small, like it's hiding," Alex stammered. "And it's really sensitive." "Everything is really sensitive down there," Kara worried. "And I don't have many curves either." Alex posed and said, "Me neither." When Kara appeared unconvinced, Alex stripped to her underwear and posed again. "See?" Kara objected. "No, you're much curvier than me." Then she also stripped down to demonstrate. Kara had a girl's figure, but the bones of her hips and her ribs were clearly visible. "See? I look wrong." Alex looked sad. She touched Kara's ribs and hips with her fingers. "I hate to admit it, but Mom was right. You really need to eat more." Kara stared at the ground, feeling miserable, and Alex realized Kara needed to be reminded of how beautiful and feminine she was. "You've got less body hair than me," Alex offered, as she brushed the smooth skin on Kara's legs with her fingers. Kara squirmed because it tickled. "Which is a good thing, because no earth raisers are up to the challenge. And your muscles are more girly than mine." As she showed off her biceps, then pinched Kara's arms. "You're such a weakling." Kara giggled, then she tackled Alex onto the sofa, but pretended to let Alex get the upper hand, the way big sisters are supposed to. Alex rolled on top of Kara, then paused. They were face to face, breath to breath, and skin to skin almost from chest to toes. The cotton balls were falling out of Kara's bra, and her legs were straddling Alex's hips. Kara waited for her sister's kiss, and hoped Alex wouldn't call it a mistake this time. Was kissing her sister really so bad? Maybe she just didn't know what it meant to be a sister. Families on Krypton were only allowed one child due to overpopulation, so the idea of a sister or brother was new to her, but it was a wonderful thing. Her best friend was always there. Her sister would always be her ally, and Kara could tell her sister everything. So how could love between them be wrong? Was it because Kara was an alien? A freak like the kids in the chat room said? Alex could see how ashamed Kara felt. To Kara's disappointment, Alex backed off, but she did not show regret this time. She stood above Kara and gazed at her affectionately, then walked to the front door and locked it. Kara sat up as Alex walked into her bedroom while directing Kara to follow with her index finger. "I guess you need to see to believe," Alex said as she lowered her panties. She sat on the bed, spread her legs, and urged Kara closer, then opened up with her fingers, saying, "See, here it is." Kara approached, though she could clearly see from across the room. "Do you have one of these?" Alex said. "I think so," Kara replied, feeling relieved and a little excited. She lowered her panties and sat beside Alex, mirroring her sister. Alex leaned in close to see. She squinted, shook her head, looking confused, and when a shadow of worry crossed Kara's brow, Alex laughed. "Yeah, you're a girl, all right." Kara gave her a playfully punitive shove, then both girls stood and put their panties back on. Their eyes met. They both knew that wasn't just a biology lesson that happened. That was an act of trust, an act of love. Their eyes agreed. Alex pulled Kara in close. Kara framed Alex's face with her hands while Alex contemptuously pulled the cotton balls from Kara's bra. "There," she said simply, and finally pushed Kara up against the wall and kissed her long and hard, interlocking lips and tongues. Finally, she needed to come up for air, and she saw her sister's eyes overflowing with tears with a big hot smile on her face, so she dove right back. Kara was lying on top of Alex on the sofa when a sound outside woke her up, and Kara was only wearing a silky bathrobe that reminded her of her clothes on Krypton. The TV was playing South Park, with Cartman blaming the Jews for something or another. Kara clicked the TV off in an instant, then carried her sleeping sister into her bedroom before the lock clicked open on the first front door. By the time their mom walked through the front door, Kara emerged from her own bedroom. Kara raised her arms high above her head, stretching and yawning, and feeling a lot wiser and more confident than ever. Eliza was weary from a long day of work, but she could not help but notice that something was different. The house was silent, and Kara was in her bathrobe. Alex was nowhere in sight at 10 p.m. That in itself was noteworthy. "Is Alex asleep?" Eliza asked. Kara nodded. "Yeah, she really had a workout." Eliza's voice got serious. "Did she help you with your homework?" Kara's smile grew as she thought about it. Finally, she just said, "Yeah."